And we're live. All right. Welcome to episode 1 of Mental Health in the Age of the Metaverse. I'm your host, Christian Ulstrup, and every episode I sit down with a mental health professional to talk about technology, including virtual reality, cryptocurrency, social media, and the rapidly evolving internet landscape, and how technology impacts our mental health. Our guest today is Monet Goldman. Monet is a licensed marriage and family therapist in Silicon Valley, just outside of San Francisco. He's got a very innovative private practice where he uses video games to connect with clients. I also have the pleasure of working with him at Virgils Inc. Monet, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Christian. It's always a pleasure tuning in and sharing all the knowledge that we've gathered together.
Nice. All right, so I want to start by talking about your innovative clinical work. This is obviously what caught my eye when I first reached out. You are known as the video game counselor. That is a very unique position to be in. I think there's a lot of chatter about video games not being good for mental health, but you take a very different approach. So tell me a little bit about that. How did it start? What are you up to?
Yeah. No, I mean, I've grown up with video games. So it really wasn't until, late high school when I had a teacher, question me about what's so great about video games. And I just was blown away. I was like, what? Like, I just, somebody who hasn't played a video game, I just try and say it's kind of like, maybe it can be like chess, but with better graphics, if you're playing a strategy game. So I was lucky to have a dad who was an engineer and played video games, bought some of the first systems. And so I grew up around it. So I've never seen it as a bad thing. Then of course, going to high school, and then I saw some of my friends who just gamed way too much and, got GPAs that I didn't even know you could go that low, but apparently you could. So how it ties to therapy? Well, during the pandemic, I needed some kind of digital play medium, right? Because we're all quarantined, we're socially distanced, and it came kind of out of desperation. It was really hard trying to connect with kids over the phone. We hadn't fully used Zoom yet. We were using other video conferencing tools that kept on dropping, and the connection was terrible. And so, the first few months were brutal. And kind of on a whim, I was just kind of talking to this little elementary school girl, and I was like, well, what do you want to do? She's like, well, we could play Roblox. And I was just like, inside I was just like, I don't know what Roblox is. I don't know what, do I have to ask my supervisor? What do I have to do here? But she didn't even wait for confirmation. Like, I could already hear her turning on her laptop. She was ready to go. And so I just figured, okay, maybe I won't play, but I'll watch, and I'll interact, and I'll kind of comment, and then I'll learn. And then, our 10-minute phone calls turned into like hour-long sessions, and she was super nice and helpful. And, of course, our goals are around social communication, rapport building, and we're able to build all that through gaming. It just wasn't understood at the time because of the stigma around gaming. But now it's, especially with COVID, people still getting COVID. It's what I continue to do today, 2 years later.
That's incredible. So that's a pretty radical shift from, it sounds like this client was just not particularly interested, hopping on the phone for 10 minutes, and now excited to play Roblox. Have you seen similar changes with other clients you've worked with?
Oh yeah, all of them. Of them. Even when I don't play like Roblox, even if it's like a math game, like a math quiz, or riddle game, they're like, okay, we gotta talk about how life's going, and then they'll just like pull out the iPad, like, so you ready to game? And they just, so juiced. And you really do see, you have more material to work with too, because you're both engaged in this activity. They're authentic. They're like emotionally activated. They're just, any therapist or adult that works with kids knows that, you're pulling teeth at times, or sometimes they're just saying things just because they want to get through the question, or they know they're supposed to say it. When you interact in a game, you really have their authentic selves to work with, and then you can really do the real work from there.
Interesting. So it sounds like when they're engaged playing the game, maybe it's a little easier to open up.
Oh, 100%. I mean, it was also pulled from my own personal experiences through the pandemic, where gaming with my friends and chatting over Discord was like the only social, way of, talking about your feelings too. So it's a great way to connect, great way to be open. I mean, I think we place such a hard, like very strict restrictions on what kids can and can't do. And then we forget like what adults naturally do anyways, like go to a bar, you go to the game, or you invite people over for some other activity. And then you talk about stuff. You don't just like sit across from each other and talk, so, why not?
Except for us right now.
Except for,
we should probably be playing a game.
I mean, I would love to. I mean,
well, maybe we'll do that on a future episode.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. Play some.
Be a lot of fun. It'd be a little difficult with the VR headset, but
yeah, I would. I just don't like how we would look, but I think if we streamed what was going on in the VR game, that would be cool.
That could be fun. Awesome. We'll have to do that in a future episode. So you talked a little bit about, your own personal experience and the role of technology in your life. And you and I are the same age. We're both 30, recently turned 30. And, for us, technology was something that is very much a part of our lives and a part of, I think, how we grew up. But we're in this kind of interesting, middle ground where we had sort of one foot firmly planted, in the pre-internet world when we were growing up until probably like adolescence. And then, at least for me, sometime around probably 11 or 12 years old, I really started to get plugged in, interested in computers and digital media and things like that. So, I'm kind of curious if you could talk a little bit about your own, some more about your own personal relationships with technology. How did it start? What were the good things, the bad things, and kind of what have you learned around developing a healthy relationship with technology, especially as a mental health professional?
I think gaming was not a problem for me because I had a dad who was also a gamer and made it very clear that, academics, sports came first. And then if you had time, then it was gaming. Right. So, I was a student athlete all throughout, all the way through college, and then even in grad school, and then after grad school. But then COVID ended that. So, I was very fortunate, had a lot of discipline, enforced by my parents. Though there were some issues, middle school, 6th grade. I just was not into geology at all. And then I got a D on my progress report. And of course, my dad came down and was like, okay, so no TV video games until this turns into an A. And, that worked. So I think it just was so ingrained. But I also understand that a lot of families, don't have that, don't have, single parent households sometimes, or parents don't have that kind of time or don't have the understanding. So it's very lucky.
Do you play games with your dad?
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, he still plays StarCraft, and we did a 2-on-2 And that was really fun. Like when we won, I'm just like, yeah, that was a great high connection. So
Nice.
Enjoyed that.
That's fun. It sounds like a fun bonding experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's older. He's in his 70s, and so it's not like we can play, soccer. Well, we could probably play soccer, but it's just easier doing a video game together.
Yeah, totally. I mean, especially if you're, remote, right? Mm-hmm. Interesting. So I think this is a good segue to a topic I think that's really top of mind for a lot of people, especially parents who are trying to figure out, what is the role of technology when it comes to mental health. And a question that, I know we've gotten that comes up over and over again is like, what is a healthy amount of screen time? Which is an interesting question because maybe that's not even the right question to ask. But let me pose it to you. How much screen time is a healthy amount?
It's so hard. If you ask me about what I think, I already know I'm going to get very defensive about my own screen time. It's going to be so hard to be objective, right? So, like there's well, you might get lucky if you got a good kid who's honest and knows what, even just yesterday, I was talking with a middle schooler transitioning to high school. It's like, yeah, anything you want to work on? It's like, well, I could always game a little less and study a little more. And it's like, yeah, we could always do that. But do we want to? And, it's always like, do we have to do this? It's like, yeah, I guess we have to. So oftentimes you want to think about prevention, right? Do I want to prevent my sixth grade self from ever getting to a point where I got a D in the first place? I think that's the hard part with a lot of kids now is just their mind hasn't developed. Some kids, like I've talked to 10-year-olds who talk like adults, very mature. But then some kids just don't have that foresight, in which case then the parent has to come in and say, hey, like this is what's happening. This is our concern. Would you be willing to whittle it down, or would you be willing to at least talk about like what is like a healthy amount or like an appropriate amount, right? And if you can have that conversation, I mean, you're in a great place. And then oftentimes in therapy, the families I see, oftentimes they're not in that place yet, and maybe the kid doesn't see it as a problem where I could control it, not a big deal. I've worked with students who've been saying that all school year, and now we have a few weeks left, and they're really scared because they have D's, C's, maybe F's, and they're looking at the prospect of dropping out of college. Summer school, summer vacation plans killed. So, that's the problem is when you realize it's a problem, sometimes it's too late. How are you going to fix your grade in 1 week? So,
yeah, it's tricky. And so it sounds like part of the problem is it's very dependent on the individual situation, right? So it's like, what are the consequences of the screen time? And it sounds like too, obviously when it comes to health, what do they say? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure or whatever, right? So, setting up those healthy relationships in the first place, having the parents be involved and having the kid, it sounds like a key part of this is really having, the child being kind of self-motivated to understand why, they maybe should make changes in their relationship. But for others, just getting to that point can be really difficult. So I'm just thinking, for the parents who are really struggling where, the kid just does not want to put down the iPad to go to dinner or to, get off of Fortnite to go do their homework. And it is getting kind of close to the wire in terms of, grades and school and everything else. I guess, what is a step that they can take to try to start that conversation, or, to help the kid take a step in the right direction?
Yeah, I think it can always be hard to reset patterns, dynamics, and rules that have been established for so long. Especially with the pandemic, right? Because I think screens were beneficial in the beginning, as a way of coping, as a way of being educated and having distractions during a very anxious time. And now we're, more than 2 years in, and we need to kind of change things up, redefine this relationship.
Mm-hmm.
If you could come from a place of like alliance building and respect, like giving your kid the respect to like know like what is good for him or her or they, you're going to get so much more buy-in. You're going to reduce that conflict cycle. You're going to reduce your own stress, because a lot of kids are going to sense an opportunity to bargain, hopefully. And so if you can give them that, then it might be a little easier. Not saying it's going to be stress-free, things like that. But if you can make reasonable, agreements, right? Like 2 hours a day, once your homework's done, because you also want to use it as an incentive and a reward, right? So a lot of students have a hard time scheduling like break time, study time, and then play time. And so sometimes as a parent, you are going to have to be the one to help them with that, because they don't know, right? Even a lot of students come to say, I just don't know. Like I know what not to do, but I don't know what to do. And so
yeah, and that takes a little bit of forethought and planning, right? To actually kind of think it through. I mean, I think there are probably a lot of adults who could benefit from that, right?
Oh,
like
yeah.
how many of us, whether it's like video games or doom scrolling on Twitter or something, you have stuff to do, but you've been, like hypnotized for like an hour and a half on the couch, and you're like, where am I? Like,
oh yeah, no, no, I work with adults too, so
yeah.
I mean, it's a lot easier, that's for sure, when you're working with adults, because they want to be there, but then the kids are like,
right,
forced to be there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, sometimes.
Well, in terms of the planning and scheduling, so that's pretty interesting. And that seems like a pretty actionable thing that a parent can do, or an individual who wants to, anybody who wants to develop a healthy relationship with tech. I guess, like very practically, what would that look like? Like, what's an easy change that you could make?
Yeah. So like if I was an adult trying to do that change.
Yeah.
Okay, adult. All right. We see, like try and get into that space of, all right, let me think about a client. Clients. Yeah. Okay. So it's crunch time, right? We got finals coming up, and it's really hard to use my time productively, because I got a lot of distractions. I got people hitting me up. I got social media. I got the news. You got the stock market. So many things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So during crunch time, if you haven't been able to manage it, you might just have to delete all those apps, because you only got a few weeks. A lot of people can really buckle down and if you've been a master procrastinator, this is where you thrive, right? All right, yeah. I've got 3 weeks left to save myself. So just delete it all, because the screensaver, the password stuff doesn't work. You're just going to keep giving yourself free time. that's one option, right? It's just, all right, you want to do it quick, the quickest thing you could do right now, get rid of it all. When I was a STEM major before deciding to become a therapist, and the guys who had the best grades in like the physics with calculus class, they say like, oh yeah, we locked up our gaming system. like like we locked it all up. Like, I mean, we knew, and those guys were serious too. I mean, I think one of them's a professor. One of them got their PhD, in physics, which is like extremely difficult. But it's like, yeah, at that level, we're talking about adults here.
Yeah.
You gotta get serious, or else you end up, being an Uber driver with a science degree, or no degree.
Mm-hmm.
Not to crap on that, but
yeah, of course, there's nothing wrong with being an Uber driver.
Yeah, I mean, if you got goals, right?
Yeah,
and just saying this is how you got to meet them.
But your time and attention are valuable, right? So you want to make sure you're investing in the things that are aligned with what you want to do. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that can be really tricky with the technology. Is it's evolved in such a way, especially with the algorithmically distributed content, that it's going to hook into the things that interest you. So your instinct, right, is to, read the tweet or the article or, whatever it is. Yeah. Keep up. And it feels like this is maybe something that I should spend some time on. But that's not necessarily the case. And for you and me, I mean, I'm so thankful that I didn't grow up. Like, we were not teenagers.
Oh yeah.
For this. I mean, we missed the social media thing. Like, it was, it was pretty close, but like we didn't have that. I think I was on Facebook maybe in high school, but it was like, the algorithms definitely were.
It was not what it is now.
That's not what it is now, right?
Different business models. They didn't even have the like button.
It was they didn't have a like button. Comment. Totally. Yeah.
Facebook was like, because I remember that transition from like MySpace to Facebook.
Yeah, MySpace.
Yeah. Nice. Like MySpace was kind of cool because it was like just your friends.
Yeah.
And then it was Facebook. And then I started getting friend requests from like my teachers and coaches. I was like, what are the adults doing here?
Yeah.
This is not cool anymore.
It's not cool.
And then now it's like so you got the news. This is how you get people get their news now. It's pretty insane. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not good. And it can be difficult to unplug because they're pulling those outrage levers and, getting you really emotionally worked up. So
very profitable to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you and I, so at Virgils, we've developed a program for adolescents that teaches healthier tech habits. So this is something we've been thinking about. But I'm curious, you have your private practice as well, and you're constantly seeing new things. We've talked about video games. We talked about social media just now, just a tiny bit. But, across those two and other types of digital media, different platforms, digital watering holes where young people can gather. What are some things, for parents especially, that, they should be mindful of when it comes to social media, with digital media and technology, which could have an impact on mental health?
Yeah, I think probably the easiest one, if you're just talking about hardware, is like just the blue light keeps people up. This is with your sleep. Once your sleep's messed up, everything else gets messed up along the way. So I mean, that's just number one. That's like the easiest. I try to tell some students, like, just don't like have a super low battery. Don't have it plugged in, because it's like you have your phone plugged in and you take it to bed. It's just infinite light in your face. And then people like it's just, I mean, this is before the pandemic. Like when working with elementary school kids, like, oh yeah, I've been up since like, went to bed at 3-4 in the morning. I was like, how did you do that? It's like, oh, I have my smartphone. It's like, why do you have a smartphone? Like you're 8, like wow. I didn't have a smartphone like until I was in college. It's just bonkers, like 8-year-olds with like Instagrams and Snapchat. It's just crazy. It's really confusing at first because I'm like, well, these parents are old enough to know like how a smartphone would impact the kid, but I guess they just didn't think about, or there's like too much trust of like, hey, okay, I can trust my 8-year-old to come to bed with a phone and then tuck himself in and turn it off. No, your 8-year-old's not there yet.
Right.
Maybe some, but you gotta be realistic with where your kid is at right now, and just gotta take it away sometimes. I think a lot of parents fear the resulting conflict or don't want to have to keep doing this. Right, it does get tiring. So really understand. So there are definitely different positive parenting strategies like rewards charts and, ways of communicating and ways of compromising, things like that I go over with in parents. But
the sleep point is quite interesting because when you say it, it seems sort of obvious. But at the same time, I think I read a study recently that it was more than half. I want to say it was high double digits, but it was more than 50%, I believe, of adults, have their phones in their bedroom. And it's like the last thing they touch when they go to bed, first thing they touch when they wake up is the smartphone. But you're saying the blue light just completely, if your sleep is knocked off kilter, then everything else can go too. Why do you think this is like not more known?
Yeah. I guess because it serves a purpose. I personally have had sleep issues my whole life. I just figured out I had sleep apnea, and now I sleep with a CPAP machine. I literally need a machine to help me breathe. But a lot of people have sleep issues. A lot of people have trouble falling asleep, mentally winding down. And I imagine, watching something soothing can be helpful. It takes longer. A lot of people have, worries and stress about work or the world. And so they're like writing emails in bed. There's just not that separation anymore. Like if you had a desktop PC, like a big bulky PC, it's like you had a computer room, or like you had to at least get out of your bed,
right,
and log in. Now it's just right in your hand. So.
Yeah, so it's just like there's no friction.
Exactly, no friction. Yeah. It's portable. It's too convenient.
Okay, big problem to solve. We're almost done. And I wanted to ask you, let's say one final question, again, for the parents in the audience. You've listed a bunch of different things that they could do to improve their own mental health and probably that of their kids, with these different approaches to using technology. But if you were to choose just one, minor actionable change that they could make today, what would it be?
It's a hard one because then I automatically think about all the different families and their kids and how each one of them have different kind of sets of problems. So it's hard to provide a one size fits all solution. So I would probably just say, like, if you're listening to this and you're looking for answers and because, you're struggling and so hard to, help your kid, just know that you're not a bad parent. You're not a bad parent for letting your kid play video games and watch TV. You're not a bad parent for not knowing what to do. And, there's just, I think there's a lot of shame around that. And I think I'm privileged to, share that space with families and, see past the veil. So just know, like, it's a really tough place to be. Also, I can't, it's really hard for me to imagine having to go through this day after day, right? Being a parent, never get a break, full-time job. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So no, you're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's certainly something I think it's impacting everybody with an internet connection, and parents especially. Awesome. Well, I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you for coming on episode 1. Next time we'll probably, I don't know, maybe we'll play StarCraft or Civilization or Gorilla Tag and hopefully not destroy our Oculus controllers.
Yeah. We play Demio if we need something slower-ish place.
Yeah. Demio is a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. Awesome. So just a few more things. One is I want to let the audience know your website outside of Virgils. So your private practice is videogamecounseling.com. Everyone can follow you on Twitter, your brand new Twitter account at video game counts.
I ran out of words or characters. I try to type out video game counseling.
Yeah.
So if you just try and type that and then it cuts you off, that's there you go. Tag. Yeah.
At video game counts. So it's video game counts is like in counselor, COUNSE. And then one last thing that I would love to plug is you created a pretty incredible screen time management tool and scheduling tool for parents, which is available for free. So I think just like you talked about at the beginning, taking that first step of understanding just how much time do you have in a given week. This is something that I've used in my own life to get a handle on, screen time and Twitter doom scrolling and internet rabbit holes and everything else. And so if you go to, parents can go to virgils.io, that's virgils.io/screen time and get that free scheduling tool. All right. That just about covers it. Monet.
Yeah. Thanks, Christian.
It was a pleasure.
Really fun.
Yeah. We'll do it again.
Oh, most definitely. I'll see you around.
All right. Thanks, my man. Bye.